My wife called out of the blue, "I'm divorcing you, and I sold our company. I'm leaving with Derek." Derek, my ex-best friend. She laughed, thinking she'd won. But when I got home, her smile vanished. She had no idea the game she thought she won was already over, and I was the one holding the winning hand. Friday evening was finally calm. I was out at Lakewood with three of my oldest friends, sitting around a fire pit, the kind of spot we used to gather at before life pulled us in different directions. No stress, no deadlines, just jokes, cold beer, and the kind of laughter that settles deep in your chest. I hadn't felt that kind of peace in months. Then my phone buzzed. Caller ID Tessa, wife. Odd. We'd spoken earlier that morning. Everything had seemed normal. I answered without thinking. "Hey, babe. Everything all right?" Her tone was razor sharp. "Don't babe me, Michael. I'm calling to let you know I'm divorcing you. Effective immediately." I sat up straighter, unsure if I'd heard her right, but she didn't wait for a response. "I've already filed the paperwork. You'll get served Monday. Also, I sold our company. The money's wired, and I'm taking my half to start fresh with Derek." Derek, my business partner, my former best friend. I stared at the fire while her voice droned on. Cool, rehearsed, merciless. She was enjoying this. "You were always buried in systems and spreadsheets. You forgot the woman next to you." She laughed, like this was a punchline she'd been waiting to deliver for months. My friends watched me carefully. They could see something was wrong, but I didn't say a word until the call ended. I took a breath, sipped my beer, and said calmly, "Good for you." That was it. No shouting, no pleading, just calm silence. I stood up, nodded to my friends, and said, "I think it's time I go home." As I drove through the neighborhood, I kept running the call over in my head. Tessa and I had built everything together. At least that's what I thought. But clearly, while I was optimizing code and expanding our client base, she was plotting a different kind of future. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw them. Tessa standing on the porch, wine glass in hand, looking like she'd already moved on. Derek was next to her, leaning against the railing, wearing that arrogant smirk he used to flash before pitching to investors. She greeted me with mock surprise. "Wow, back already? I thought you'd at least try to beg." I glanced at her once, then turned to Derek. "Good to see you again, partner." He scoffed. "You think we owe you a conversation?" "Not really," I said, unlocking the front door. "Just came to grab a few things." Inside, it was clear they hadn't wasted time. My office had been emptied. The safe was open, every shared account drained, even my father's old watch. The one thing I kept locked in my study drawer was gone. Back in the living room, Tessa stood with her arms folded. "You're not going to cause a scene, are you?" "Why would I?" I replied. "You sold the company, right?" "Exactly," she said. "Everything's clean, legally binding. You'll get your half." Derek chimed in. "Assuming you don't blow it all crying into your beers?" They laughed together like this was all a game. I smiled slightly. "Right. One question, though. When did you sign the sale contract?" Tessa raised an eyebrow. "2 days ago." "Why?" "Interesting," I said, walking to the kitchen, grabbing a bottle of water. "Because 3 days ago, I quietly transferred all intellectual property, back-end rights, and software ownership to my name. Fully notarized, fully legal, with complete documentation." They both froze. "You sold a company shell," I continued calmly. "The buyer's about to realize they paid top dollar for a building with no plumbing." I pulled a folded document from my coat pocket and placed it on the counter. Tessa snatched it up and scanned it frantically. This isn't possible. I would have seen it." "No," I said. "You were too busy sneaking around with Derek." The room went silent. The only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock. Tessa's face drained of color. Derek's jaw tightened. This was just the beginning. Tessa's confident grin collapsed in seconds. She stared at the document like it was written in a language she couldn't read. Derek moved behind her, squinting at the pages, trying to pretend he understood any of it. He didn't. "What kind of stunt is this?" he asked, grabbing the document from her hands. "No stunt," I said. "Just good planning." Tessa threw the paper onto the counter. "This isn't over. We have lawyers." "You'll need them," I replied, "especially once Price and Walton Holdings figures out what they just bought." Derek stepped forward. You're bluffing. I opened my laptop and pulled up the original contracts. Not bluffing. Here's the notarized IP transfer. Here's the updated patent ownership. Here's the licensing breakdown, customer data usage rights, back-end server agreements. You two sold them an empty shell with no legal access to the real infrastructure. Tessa's voice cracked. They'll never believe this. They won't need to, I said. The documents speak for themselves. For the first time that night, they were silent. Tessa turned away, her confidence shattered. Derek followed her to the living room, muttering curses. I grabbed what little I had left, a backup drive, a few personal folders, and the last paper copy of our prenup, something I had a feeling would be useful soon. As I left, Tessa tried one last jab. You always thought you were the smartest guy in the room. I paused. No, I just never underestimated what people would do for money. You taught me that. The next morning, I walked into Price and Walton's downtown office. No appointment, no announcement. Just walked in, calm and collected. The receptionist recognized me. Mr. Carter, Mr. Price will see you now. Gregory Price was already reviewing a document when I entered his boardroom. You're here about the acquisition, he said flatly. I nodded. I think you'll want to see this before your legal team finishes due diligence. I handed him a leather folder and sat across from him. He flipped through the contents quickly, his expression darkening with each page. When he got to the licensing breakdown, he stopped. So, what you're saying is, we paid for a company with zero operational infrastructure? Exactly, I said. Everything that makes the product functional, code, analytics tools, server logic, customer data flows, all of it is legally tied to me. Price didn't ask how. He was a businessman. He understood moves like this, especially when they came from someone who'd been cut out and underestimated. And your wife didn't know? I shrugged. She never cared about the legal framework, just the payout. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. Let me guess, you're here to offer a solution. I am, I said. I'll license everything back to you for triple the acquisition price. He raised an eyebrow. Triple? Call it a stupidity tax. He tapped a pen against the folder. You're a smart man, Mr. Carter. Smarter than she thought. He extended a hand. We have a deal. Back at my old house, Tessa and Derek were lounging like royalty, mimosas on the deck, still high on the delusion that they'd won. Then her phone buzzed. She picked it up, read the email silently, then again, slower. Her face drained. Derek, she whispered. He voided the acquisition. What? Gregory Price. He's backing out. Says the assets were misrepresented. Fraudulent. Legal review is underway. Another buzz. This one from her bank. She opened the message, hands trembling. Accounts frozen, she muttered. Suspicious activity. IRS investigation. She stood up so fast her drink fell off the table. No. No, no, no. Derek stared at her like she'd just started speaking in tongues. What the hell is going on? She didn't answer. She grabbed her keys and ran to the car. I'm going to find him. Now. By the time she arrived at my new co-working suite, I was finalizing the agreement with Price's team. She banged on the glass wall outside like she was trying to break through it. People stopped to watch. I didn't move, just kept typing. Then after a full minute, I pressed the door unlock button. She stormed in. What the hell did you do? She shouted. You sabotaged everything. I didn't respond. She kept going. My accounts are locked. Price is threatening me with legal action. You planned this. I finally looked at her. The panic, the disbelief. It wasn't anger anymore. It was fear. You sabotaged yourself, I said. I just made sure the consequences caught up. You want revenge? She hissed. Fine. You got it. But give me something. Half the deal. My share of the company. Something. I walked over to the cabinet, pulled out a sealed envelope, and handed it to her. What's this? Your share. She tore it open. Inside was a copy of the prenup. She read it once. Then again, her lips moved, reading the clause out loud. Any business assets founded or developed by Michael Carter prior to or during the marriage shall remain his sole and undisputed property. She looked up, stunned. This isn't the version I saw. No, Derek made sure you never saw the final copy, but I kept the original, and so did the notary. She took a step back. You're lying. I stared at her. Check with your lawyer. Then came a knock at the door. Two federal agents stepped in. Tessa Carter? One of them said. You're being served. IRS and civil fraud proceedings. She looked at me, eyes wide. You turned me in? I shook my head. No, your name was on the sale, not mine. She didn't say another word, just stood there as the agents escorted her out. I closed the door, sat back down, and smiled. Tessa's arrest wasn't the end. It was the ignition point. By the next morning, whispers about the fraudulent sale began circulating in tech forums. By noon, the business news had it. Price and Walton Holdings issued a public statement distancing themselves from a compromised acquisition attempt and confirming legal action to recover damages. But the real explosion came that evening. Screenshots of private emails began appearing online, messages from Tessa's account to Derek. Someone from their inner circle had leaked them anonymously. The content was brutal. Lines like, Michael's too buried in code to see anything. I'll let him finish the pitch deck, then flip the whole company under him. Derek says once we cash out, we can ditch the paperwork and disappear. They didn't just betray me, they planned to dismantle everything we built, torch my reputation, and vanish with the money. One message stood out more than the rest. By the time Michael figures it out, we'll be halfway to the Caribbean. The story went viral. A Reddit thread dissecting the betrayal hit the front page in hours. A LinkedIn post titled, How Not to Flip a Tech Startup, racked up 1 million views. Every business podcast had a hot take. Some called it a masterclass in betrayal, others injustice. Tessa and Derek became infamous overnight, but not in the way they'd imagined. I stayed quiet. I didn't speak to the press. I didn't post anything. I didn't gloat. That was the beauty of it. Everyone else did it for me. Derek was the first to fold. When Price's legal team contacted him, he didn't even hesitate. She planned everything, he said in a recorded statement. I was just following her lead. He turned on her in an instant, claiming she manipulated him, forged paperwork, and used him to access internal systems. It wasn't true, of course. They were in it together. But betrayal doesn't breed loyalty. It devours it. Tessa was left to fight the storm alone. She tried to launch a counterattack. New lawyers, PR consultants, a crisis management team. But the evidence was everywhere. Her own words had burned the bridge. And the IRS wasn't interested in excuses. They were interested in transactions. Bank statements, wire transfers, memos, on all showing a clear pattern. Asset misrepresentation, fraudulent conveyance, and unreported capital movement. Classic flags for financial misconduct. Even the prenup came back into play. Her legal team tried to argue she had no knowledge of the final draft, but the notary records were airtight. Signatures, timestamps, witness logs, all verified. She had no legal claim to the company or its assets. What she did have was a growing list of lawsuits. Price's firm sued for damages. The IRS pursued her for tax fraud. 2 former clients of ours sued for breach of contract. Her name became toxic. Every recruiter, every investor, every partner she reached out to had already seen the screenshots. The image of a powerful tech co-founder collapsed almost overnight. Meanwhile, I moved forward. I declined Price's offer to come on board as a lead consultant. I had no interest in salvaging what Derek and Tessa ruined. Instead, I started over, quietly, cleanly. I used the licensing fees from the IP to bootstrap a new platform. Leaner, smarter, built on everything I'd learned, especially about people. I didn't rush. I didn't overpromise. I just worked. And this time I did it alone. But I didn't stay alone for long. At a tech convention months earlier, I'd met someone, Emma. She was running a small AI consultancy, sharp and thoughtful. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She wasn't chasing titles or exits. We bumped into each other again at a startup roundtable and decided to collaborate on a prototype. Just business at first, but it grew from there. She challenged my ideas, improved my code, and never once used ambition as a weapon. With her, everything felt simple in the way that real trust does. One evening, as we finalized a joint proposal for a new platform, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voicemail came through. Michael, it's me. I don't know where else to turn. I've lost everything. Derek's gone. My accounts are frozen. Everyone abandoned me. I made a mistake. Please just talk to me. I need something, anything. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I pressed block. There was nothing left to say. Tessa didn't go quietly. She fought. She brought in a second legal team, then a third. When the civil lawsuits stacked up, she hired a crisis consultant and a media strategist. She went on the defensive, claiming she was misled, that the sale had been above board, that I had orchestrated everything from the shadows. She played the victim, publicly at least. But the truth doesn't care about strategy. The documents were real. The signatures matched. The timestamps aligned. Every move she made had been logged, filed, and backed up, sometimes twice. The IRS didn't care about her narrative. Neither did Price and Walton Holdings, now several $1 million lighter and backed by a legal team known for leaving no stone unturned. The lawsuits moved forward. The IRS audit deepened. They traced transactions she'd tried to reroute through shell accounts. In one instance, she attempted to wire funds to a foreign account using Derek's name on a joint authorization she never had legal access to. That alone added wire fraud to the charges. Even the bank started cooperating. When she tried to retrieve personal funds from a locked account, she was informed the account had been flagged. Financial institutions don't enjoy the spotlight, and her account history had become radioactive. And then came the leak. Someone, likely from the crisis PR firm she'd fired, sent out another set of emails, internal messages between her and Derek after the sale. In them, she mocked the buyer, bragged about offloading dead weight, called me naive and safe to ignore, said I'd fold within a month. Those emails sealed it. Whatever sympathy she might have scraped together vanished. The headlines wrote themselves, "Tech co-founder implodes in fraud scandal." Power couples collapse, betrayal, wire transfers, and a hidden prenup. From boardroom to bankruptcy, the fall of Tessa Carter. She became a cautionary tale. And Derek? He went underground. Once he realized the legal firestorm was real, he vanished. His name disappeared from the company he tried to build with her. He withdrew from social media, scrubbed public records, and sold his car through a third party to cover legal costs. But it wasn't enough. Price's firm came after both of them for breach of contract and misrepresentation. Derek's quick move to blame Tessa earned him a reduced settlement. He flipped hard, offering up chats, financial records, and even a private audio recording where Tessa talked about how easy it was to manipulate investor interest. By the time Tessa realized she was standing alone, the damage was irreversible. She attempted a rebrand. New name, new city, freelance work in low-visibility sectors. But people remembered. The internet never forgets. Background checks flagged her every time. Clients walked away. Partners pulled out. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I didn't engage, didn't respond, didn't gloat, but I did rebuild. Emma and I launched our platform 6 months after the fallout. It wasn't flashy, no public funding, no press tour, just a clean, focused rollout to clients who needed real tools, not buzzwords, and it worked. Within 3 months, we landed our first major contract. 6 months later, we were profitable. Not rich, not viral, just steady. Honest. At a networking mixer, someone introduced me as the guy whose ex tried to steal everything. I corrected them. No, I said. I'm the guy who saw it coming and stayed calm. They nodded, laughed, and bought me a drink. That was the only validation I needed. But every once in a while, someone would mention Tessa, a sighting, a rumor, a whisper that she was still fighting some legal battle, still trying to reclaim something from the wreckage. A friend texted me a photo once, said he saw her outside a courthouse downtown. Same name on the docket, different case. She was sitting on a bench alone, staring down at her hands like she was trying to remember who she used to be. I didn't reply. Whatever she was chasing now, it wasn't my concern. That chapter was closed. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It came quietly over time. In the months after the dust settled, I moved out of the city. Not far, just enough to breathe again. I rented a small space near a university tech hub and kept my work low profile. The new company, the one Emma and I built, grew on its own terms. No investors pushing timelines, no media spotlight, just product, clients, results, and most importantly, no betrayal. Emma and I worked well together. Where Tessa had seen the business as leverage, Emma saw it as responsibility. She focused on solving problems, not controlling narratives. We kept things professional until it no longer made sense to pretend we weren't building more than just a company. We took our time, no rush, no drama. One evening, as we were finalizing an onboarding proposal, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. No voicemail this time, just a message. I'm sorry, I should have seen what I had. If there's any way to talk, please. I just need to hear your voice. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I didn't owe her closure. She hadn't wanted conversation when she walked away. She wanted control. Now she was looking for relief, from guilt, from consequences. But that was hers to carry. Tessa faded from my life like background noise. Her name still popped up occasionally, mostly in business ethics seminars or articles about corporate governance. She became an example, a warning. Don't be a Tessa Carter was something I once overheard a startup founder say to his COO during a pitch review. I didn't correct him. Meanwhile, I kept working. The consulting arm of our company expanded. Emma led the research team. I handled partnerships. We hired slowly and deliberately, never chasing headcount just to look big. And we made sure every new hire understood one thing. Integrity wasn't a feature, it was the foundation. Eventually, we sold a minority stake to a partner firm that shared our values. The deal was clean, the paperwork thorough, the future bright. I didn't celebrate with champagne or flashy announcements. I took Emma out for dinner, and we ordered what we wanted without looking at the prices. Later that night, she asked me what I would have done differently if I could go back. Nothing, I said. It had to happen the way it did, so I could learn who not to trust, and more importantly, who to trust again. A year later, I spoke at a closed-door tech conference. It wasn't about betrayal, it was about building resilient systems, both technical and personal. After the session, a woman from the audience approached me. You're Michael Carter, right? The guy from the Tessa case? I smiled. I'm the guy who didn't give up when everything fell apart. She nodded. That's better. That was the moment I realized the narrative had shifted. I wasn't the guy who got betrayed anymore. I was the one who rebuilt, who moved forward, who learned the lesson and lived the answer. The final piece of closure came in the most unexpected way. I received a letter, handwritten, no return address. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say I was wrong. About everything. I was scared of becoming invisible, and I thought power would protect me. It didn't. I lost everything I tried to take, and I see now it was never mine to begin with. I hope you found peace. I haven't. Maybe someday. T. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Forgiveness doesn't require dialogue. It requires distance, and I had plenty of that now. Today I wake up without tension in my chest. I start my mornings with purpose, not pressure. I work with people I respect, not ones I fear, and I go home to a life I built on trust, not illusion. This isn't a revenge story. It's a recovery story. Tessa and Derek got exactly what they earned, not because I hunted them down, but because truth eventually collects its debts. And me, I got peace, because I didn't strike back in anger. I just let gravity finish what their arrogance started.